Well, so there's the first thing that I did wrong, Alan, and this is why it's such a professional organization here at the world headquarters of Big Board. I did that countdown thing, and then I forgot to press go live.
There you
So
go.
here I am giving
It's
you
Murphy
advice
Day.
on how to do this stuff, and I can't even press the go live button. So, well, look, thank you. I'm going to call you Stiglr. Is that okay? Because I know you as
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and while I was trying to do all that countdown, my wife walked in and she's like, "Now I'm gonna go do this, and then I'm gonna go do that." And I'm like, "It's got 10 seconds to go here. You need to hurry." So it was kind of a cluster. But welcome. So welcome to Voices You Need to
Thank you.
Hear. Let me just see who's joined us. I'm on the wrong. Of course, John Longshore is here, and Jeffrey, and Hex to Hex. So we got the crew. We got Jeff and Co. So our goal tonight is to let people know a little bit more about you and your cool channel. And I some of the videos I've watched of yours. In fact, I went back to it when you started, which is just like a year ago, right?
Yep.
Yep. And so you've been really focused on American Civil War, and based on your attempts to help me learn the great battles of the American Civil War, which, by the way, you didn't do a really good job because I'm thinking about giving up, man. Me and Steve are like, the hell with it, we're out. It wasn't your fault; it was our fault. But you're really deep into that, into the American Civil War, and you're really basically you're a game designer or a module designer for the GBACW, yeah?
Actually, all three. I got back into this hobby after about a 30-year absence, and one of my favorites back in high school, some 35 years ago, was Terrible Swift Sword and the Richard Berg Tactical Civil War series. And when I came back, I found out that the whole series had morphed over to GMT. I had to relearn
Right.
the system and all of that. And so I kind of fell in with the community there. And as a result of doing that and getting into Vassal very heavily, I kind of volunteered to kind of be the Vassal guy for all of the modules and the games that are in production. So,
Right.
while I've created modules for most of the games in the series, I'm also creating modules for playtesting. So, when Death Valley was in its gestation period, I was creating the modules for that. For the upcoming Into the Woods, the Shiloh uh, reboot, I'm doing the duties for that too. And also, it's not quite ready for a big announcement yet, but I'm also working on my own project of 4 battles that'll be stuffed into a box, hopefully
Right.
soon. So
Well, that's
pretty
cool.
busy with it.
Yeah, and so and I know you can't talk about it. We talked a little bit about it when you were on Vassal with us at one point, but I'm excited to see how that goes for you. I think it'll be awesome that you get to have your get design credits, and you've been such a fan for the community. So that's really cool. So tell me, so it's always good, I think, in these types of interviews, people like to know, like as you mentioned, you getting back into the hobby. So tell us briefly about your genesis in or initiation into wargaming and what you started playing, and then I'll ask a couple other questions after that.
Okay. Yeah, I started right as I was entering high school. And
Right.
I started life in Pennsylvania, in the Philadelphia area. And the last middle school that I attended there, I fell in with a couple of guys who were, into the Avalon Hill Classics. And so they introduced me to Waterloo and Africa Corps and 1776, which
Shady
during
character.
that time, yes, during that time it was billed as the official bicentennial war game. And then that summer, after that year, we moved to LA from Philadelphia.
Wow.
So
No,
I
please change.
completely lost touch with those guys, but the seed had been planted. So I started getting into wargaming on my own, and then I found myself at a high school that had a wargaming club, and
Hmm.
so naturally I jumped at that, and that's when I kind of fell in with a large clique of people that would become lifelong friends. And
So hang on. So tell me a little bit about that Wargame Club. Like how many kids were in it?
there, it was fairly
If you
small
remember.
as our school went. There were maybe 15 to 20 regulars there, and we
Wow.
had yeah, we had a little room of our own, and it was funny. We were at a Jesuit Catholic private school, and so the Jesuits actually kind of frowned on anything about war or anything like that. But they tolerated us, and we presented ourselves well, and we got a teacher as a kind of a champion and sponsor. So they kind of left us alone. And so in I went there, and I was a Avalon Hill company man when I went in there, and they quickly descended on me and turned me into an SPI fan. So,
Ah.
I remember Brightonfeld was my very first SPI game, and I was kind of looking at the two color graphics and the paper maps and looking down my nose. But, I quickly found out that, wow, there really was something to these games. And so I quickly changed and became a SPI fan, and then Terrible Swift Sword came out. We got into that. We got into Air War, the super complex air game. We played a lot of Wooden Ships and Iron Men and Air Force Dauntless, and so that continued all through high school. And then when I went off to college, I kind of got involved in some other things, and I kind of lost interest, and so I kind of did a Rip Van Winkle with wargaming that lasted about 30 years.
It's funny how guys do that, isn't it? Right? I mean, we get all enthusiastic and passionate about it, and then we spend our nights and our weekends, and I remember designing a Dungeons and Dragons castle for my paladin that was going to be 70 bazillion levels at some point, and then of course oh, women and life and jobs, and
Right.
next thing you know, 30 years have gone by, and we're like, oh, I need a hobby. How did you
Yes.
get
And
back?
so,
What got you back?
yeah, it was funny. I kept most of my war games in boxes, and they went with me through moves that took me from LA up to the Bay Area and finally up here to Portland, Oregon. But I always had those games, and I always thought, one day I'm going to be ready to retire, and then maybe me and my friends who still live in LA can meet and play these games again when we don't have jobs to worry about. So I
Right.
kept them, and there was a couple of times where I thought I was going to inventory the whole thing and put it on eBay and sell it all, but I never did. And then after I uh, bought this house that we live in, I suddenly just looked at it and said, "You know what? I think I'm going to try and get back into this again." And I learned about Vassal, and so everything kind of took a a different path. But
So
yeah,
did you find
it's been
that
great.
did that open up your world, right? For gaming buddies?
Yes, I quickly found out that although Portland is a pretty big gaming town, it's not necessarily a strong wargaming town. So I
Right.
can, if I wanted to just play Euros, I could find any number of people to play with. But
Right.
wargamers, there are a couple of guys that I know, but it face to face, it doesn't really happen for me here. And if it hadn't been for Vassal, I think my wargaming comeback would have lasted maybe 3 months, and I'd have just gone back to playing golf again
Oh
because
wow.
it's impossible to get a game. And for 3 or 4 years, I played more games with people in Canada and France. I played people stateside.
Well, so that's a shame. Now I know Portland's kind of like soy boy central, so I mean it's probably hard to find a wargamer there. But do you? So there are no wargamers, but lots of Euro gamers.
Yes. Well, there are a couple of war gamers that that I know of. It's just that
Sure.
either they are interested in different games that I'm interested in, or we just don't. Our schedules just don't work out, and so we hardly ever meet. Um, yeah, it's just really tough to find a game here.
Right, right.
Which
Yeah,
explains
well,
why we first met up in Seattle at
yeah, that's right. Ooh, I'm losing you. You're breaking up. Oh, you know what?
the Game On,
Yep.
and that I ended up playing with Alan. 4 matches I think I've had face to face since I got back into gaming.
Four. We
Four.
need to fix, we
Two of
need to
them were
fix that.
the
We
same.
need to fix that. You need to come up to Robert Bottas's Canadian once they open the borders up there and they let real men in. Let's go meet up there and have a game up there or something.
I'd love to do that. In fact, I just got a new passport late last year. That was a huge story in and of itself, trying to navigate that through the COVID time. But yeah, I'd like nothing better than to pop up and visit Canada. I'm embarrassed to say that although I've been to Europe several times, I have yet to visit either Canada or Mexico. So it's kind of odd.
Yeah, Mexico's a little different now than it used to be. I used to go to I used to go to Mexico all the time, uh, just travel and work. And my wife and I used to go for vacations and stuff because it's so close to Texas and whatnot. But we don't go anymore. It's just this is not cool. I'm not taking my kids down to Mexico anytime soon. I go to Mexico City for work, but even then, I try and hang out with a bunch of people that can take care of me. It's not a
Hmm.
fun place to be. But Canada, on the other hand, everyone's extra nice, so they kind of compensate for the Southerners a little bit. So it's a little rough in Mexico and extra nice in Canada. I've got lots of great Canadian friends. They're good people up there. So
I've heard
Rob Bottas,
Vancouver is lovely.
yeah, Vancouver's awesome. It's so amazing. Yeah. Yeah, Rob Bottas has got a great con up there that I have not yet been to, but I really want to get to at some point. So that's kind of next on my Northwest list is to get to his con. Anyway, enough about me. So okay, so you really got back to wargaming and then did the whole vassal thing and got some buddies that you can play with there and all that sort of fun stuff. What about YouTube? Because your channel's only a year old, right? So what's a
Yeah.
catalyst, first of all, for doing YouTube stuff?
Well, I suppose I started watching No Enemies Here every week and sidelight of doing streamcasts and vlogs and things like that. And I didn't really want to get into it like the way Dan has, or even the way you do. You have a lot of things going on, and you're constantly showing us what you're playing, what you're working on.
Sure.
And I knew that I just just with the vassal duties, I just don't really have time for that. But there have been some times where I could use this as a opportunity to show people like how to get into Vassal. One of
Right.
the first episodes I filmed was just an intro to Vassal. I constantly hear people who are under the impression that it's like deciding to learn ASL, Advanced Squad Leader. It's
Right.
like this whole big system you have to learn and all this stuff you have to acquire, and it's like no, it's all Vassal is just a tool to allow you to digitize a game and play it online or by
Yep.
email. and that's really all it is. There's very little that you have to quote unquote learn. I filmed a episode just on how to download it, how to get it to run, how to get onto the server, and there are a couple little little quibble things that can kind of first start out, and to just dispel those. So that was one of the first episodes I created. And then last year, I decided, because a lot of people are interested in great battles in the American Civil War, but they know it has a very steep learning curve. I decided, well,
Really?
a intro teaching scenario might be good. So right around the 4th of July, my company gives us the entire 4th of July week off. So I thought, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on July 1st, which, is the start of Gettysburg, the first day. I'm going to start a series of just playthroughs and use it as a teaching exercise. So, I started with, Buford versus Heath and, very low counter density. And I just explained the system and all the steps and what was going on and, the mechanics of what was going on. And then I also explained the strategy of what I was trying to do in more strategy terms, and then how that works out in the game and all those sort of things.
Right. Right.
Kind of give people an idea of the way the system works. And so I did that, and then I got through maybe 6 game hours and maybe 5 or 6 episodes of it, and just that way. It was
And you
fun.
and, and you what? Sorry, I didn't catch that last bit. You what?
Oh, it was a lot of fun doing
A
that.
lot of fun. Cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I enjoyed that first episode, and I probably in hindsight, because I watched it a while ago. In hindsight, when Steve and I were trying to play, we probably should have sat down and watched your videos, and then uh, maybe that might have helped us kind of not make as many errors as we did in our two abortive attempts at the game. I think Steve's vision of what the game is or was when he was playing it, which was maybe several years ago. It's evolved and it's a little more complex. And I think the Death
Yeah,
Valley module in particular has a lot of, I won't call it esoteric, but exception based rules by
yeah,
battle that just kind of threw him a little bit. So we missed the kind of the foundational gameplay stuff. We're trying to do the foundational
right.
gameplay and then jump in with all the but instead of doing rule X, you do rule X but with a twist type of thing. So that kind of screwed us up a little bit. Well, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I get because you seem to have pretty much focused on almost exclusively on your channel on American Civil War, the American Civil War, right?
Yeah, that or Vassal. It just happens that GBACW is just so immersive, and because I'm also involved behind the scenes with the series and the production of it, it just monopolizes all my time. I have to really make an effort to divert into other things. But I have managed to get into a few other series, uh, usually by setting up like standing dates on a Saturday with a few
Right,
people and playing on
right.
Vassal. So I was able to get into the old SPI Central Front series for a while, playing
Hmm.
with Al Hay, who is the kind of the curator of the SPI Vassal sneaker
Yeah,
net.
the sneaker
Are
net. Yeah, and what a great
Yes,
group that
exactly.
is, right? What a
Yes,
great group that
and
is.
then I was also able to fall in with a fellow who introduced me to Flat Top, and we played, I think, 3 uh, flat top scenarios, including Midway, and that
Nice.
the Midway scenario, that was like one of the highlights of my entire gaming career. It was so so fun and so tense and so crazy that yeah, I'll remember that one for years and years.
So tell me now, I've never played the Midway scenario on flat top. I've played CV, which is the flat top system. So what do they do with all the islands and stuff like that? Or do they use different section on the map? How does that work? Or
Um,
am I thinking of something else?
the Midway was a an addition that was
That's right.
created for Avalon Hill General,
That's right.
and
It's
I
in the
think
general. Yeah.
yes. So it has its own map, and whoever created the Vassal module also put Midway and the Wake Island scenario and all of the
Yeah.
maps and components into the module. So we were able to play it just as easily as say Coral Sea, which is what we started with. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Coral Sea is a little bit of a challenge because you've got there's kind of a time hook on that thing, and the Japanese kind of have to go one of a couple of different ways if they're going to go to attack Port Moresby. So it's easy for the CVs to kind of sit there and go, "Oh, well, if we wait and search, we'll get them," like that type of thing. So it's a little bit of a hack there. But Midway. The
Yeah.
C have you ever played the CV version of that? It's called CV, carrier, whatever it is,
Yes.
carrier.
I have
You ever played that?
heard that basically what CV was a just a different iteration of flat top based only on Midway. So it could
Right.
use the same map. I don't know. I've never seen a copy of it, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have since learned that CV was supposed to just be
Yeah.
Midway using the flat top system. So yeah, it may
Yeah, that's
very
right.
well be
Yeah,
the
that's right. I
same
think it
thing.
is.
But
Yeah, it's pretty much that. But having played both, it's very similar. Um, but I'd be curious if now I'm going to have to go pull out that general magazine. Now you've got me curious because one of the problems with CV is that you really, if you do your math right, you can work out really where the Japanese kind of are, right? So when I
yeah,
play, we typically let the Japanese have a flexible entry so they can come in anywhere because there's two
yes,
main sections. There's a north and a south section that the Japanese can come in on only and only at certain times. Oh, although I think you might be able to delay,
hmm
but anyway, I'm digressing. But if you
no,
open it up, then you've got this literally half a map of where the Japanese could be and all the storms and clouds. It's great. It's a great game. Great game.
yes,
Good fun.
yeah, and I hear you about the variable entry. I think that that is really necessary to really make a go of the scenario because when we played, I found that I had a lot more time to work with to just create confusion. And
Yes.
basically, what I did with my maneuver was uh, to use American football as a metaphor. I just made a big stunt and I just like changed the directions just to throw off all the huge swarms of Catalinas that were searching. And
Right.
it was pretty much successful
I hate
up
those
to a
damn
point.
Catalinas. Yeah, I hate those
Yeah,
damn Catalinas.
just too many of them. There were a few times where he actually went directly over one of the main task forces. I was in clouds and he rolled a 6, but I mean, he went right over it and then didn't double back to try it again. And yeah,
Yeah,
I was sitting there like sweating, going like, "Oh no, oh no!" And it's like, "Oh, you rolled a 6. Nope, you don't see anything."
that's awesome.
And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was
Well,
great.
see, so,
It was
so
a
those
lot.
things like that, and given you play on Vassal, it'd be kind of cool if you captured some of those, like if you keep a vlog, right,
Yes,
and then record them. You could even do commentary after the game because sometimes when you're playing with guys, they don't want to have you video record. So I always respect
right,
that. But if you capture a vlog, then you can kind of talk through at least your side of what they were thinking and stuff like that. That's pretty cool.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
that's the
yeah.
that's the challenge with task force, is that it's hard to reconstruct it because of the hidden movement angle, and you know you can't do it in real time, you know, if you're doing it
Right.
every Saturday, because you know you're just going to give intel to your opponent, so you can't really say anything. And then once I did keep notes and things like that, but
Right.
you know going back to it, it was just going to be such a major production to, you know, encapsulate it, or you know make some
Right.
kind of a video
Yeah.
out of it. It would have been really
Yeah.
difficult, but it was great. There was a lot of drama.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I do recall when I was my earlier Vassal days, I thought, well, this would be really cool to publish some of these. So I asked people for Vassal log files and stuff. And I started trying to work out ways to record it and make it interesting. And it's really hard because, you know, first of all, it's a two-dimensional representation of something that's three-dimensional that we want to be tactile with and all the rest of it. And then you just kind of clicking through
Right.
this Vassal log, going, oh, this piece moves. So it gets kind of tedious. So unless you've got a good sort of narrator voice and you know can come up with a good story, it's kind of okay, thanks for nothing. So anyway,
Yeah.
so do you envision with your channel, are you going to do other things? Are you going to do something beyond ACW or just focus on ACW? Are you going to be a specialist, or are you going to broaden your horizons?
um that's a good question. I think for now, with you know what I have on my plate, I'll probably just stick with a mixture of GBACW and Vassal. And in fact, I might even start doing some things that won't be published on YouTube, but will be for the benefit of people in the community who are building new games. There are a lot of different skills that they can learn about producing maps and producing counters, you know, with InDesign and Photoshop and Illustrator
Right.
and things
Right.
like that, that can help to increase the speed at which we can turn the games out. And also, you know, teaching them maybe some more skills in Vassal module authoring, because you know right now I'm the guy who creates all the modules for, you know, what gets published and what's in production. So as you can
Right.
imagine, I always have a lot on my plate, and in the end, it keeps me from doing more gaming than I would like to
Right.
do. I mean,
Right.
in
Right.
some cases, it even stops me from play testing too. You know, it's like I'm building the modules, and then I don't really get to play more than maybe, you know, say one or two out of the whole Death Valley thing. And I was involved in that for, you know, 3 or 4 years while it was being built. And there are still some games in the box that I haven't played. I'm
Hmm.
pretty familiar with it because I built the modules and I did the
Right.
setups and all of this stuff. So it's like I'm intimately familiar with the module, but I may not have actually fought the battle.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I think that's a great service that you do, just building the modules and also the tutorials. It's good. There's more and more of that needed, particularly tutorials on how to build your own, right? The more people we can get building modules, Vassal's a free tool, and as long as someone owns the game, then we can all get online and play. And we're now all a lot more comfortable with using digital tools to communicate, because I know that I know even just as early as 2 or 3 years ago, when you talk to someone about playing a game on Vassal, like, oh, I'm too old, I'm not going to learn a new thing, or I don't want to use a PC or
Right.
whatever. And now, if you want to talk to anybody, or this was the case a year ago at least, I don't know what it's like up there anymore, but but in Texas we're pretty much open now. But if you want to play or communicate or talk to your grandkids or whatever, you had to get on a Zoom call to do it. So hopefully
That's
that's kind
right.
of lighten people up a little bit to experience it. Vassal's an awesome tool, as is Tabletop
Yes.
Simulator. But,
Right. Yeah. I was kind of amused this time last year when the whole country was basically shutting down, and I've just noticed how the traffic on the Vassal server like quadrupled, quintupled overnight,
Right.
and it was really interesting to see some people who said, hey, if the choice was to either not play face to face or play Vassal, then I just won't play at all. A lot of them found that they couldn't live without their gaming, and they found themselves getting into Vassal and learning what it was all about. So that it was really good to see people who were pretty much forced into
Yeah.
using Vassal and
Yeah.
discovering what it's about. As far as um, teaching people to fish, so to speak, um, I I learned about Vassal through Joel Toppin's YouTube tutorial series on how to
Right.
build modules.
Right. Right.
And after I kind of cut my teeth at that, I I quickly settled into the idea that you have to give back with this community. We're all in this really together, and so I kind of took it upon myself to share what I know and to try to evangelize for Vassal as much as possible. At the same time, I'm one of its biggest critics. I can often be seen arguing with Joel Uckelman and some of the code guys on Vassal about the die roller, which I still suspect is not as random as they say it is. But
Don't start. Don't you
also,
start.
no, it's but by the same token, I'm its biggest fan. I'm always
Sure.
evangelizing for it. I'm always debating with people who are reluctant or dead set against ever playing a game online. And so I'm always trying to give back. And the most recent initiative I've undertaken is to take Al Hayes' SneakerNet archive, and now that Decision Games has lifted their embargo on being able to host SPI properties in Vassal modules online, we're going back and we're getting all of those old SPI modules, and there are close to 200 of them,
Yep.
get them uploaded onto the Vassal site where they've always belonged for years and years and years.
Exactly.
And so I rustled up a little team of there are about three of us, and we got a spreadsheet compiled that has the list, and we're just going on there and downloading it from Al Hayes' archive, uploading it and creating new pages on Vassal, and we're just chewing through all of them. I think it'll take maybe a month or a couple of months to get through the whole list, but we're making good headway, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
another
awesome.
service that I thought I had to provide. Al Hay is he's not in the best of health these days, and he also lacks the tools to be able to upload the stuff on his own. So, just as a service to him for having
Right.
hosted this archive for all these years, when he took a bit of a legal risk at making them available for people to be able to use. So, you know, again, it's the least I can do to kind of give back to him for just being able to play, some Vassal modules that I didn't create.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. In fact, it goes even beyond that, really, because I think at last count that I saw with his archive of scanned games, he's painstakingly scanned at a very high quality 1300, 1400 war games, and he doesn't make them freely available, but they're available if you need a replacements or if you want to get a copy of a rule book or whatever the case may be, or if they want to be turned into vassal modules. There's that in itself is amazing. At one point I said to him, hey, look, if you ever need any game that I own that you don't own, I'll mail it up to you and send you a shipping box to send it back in. You scan it and do whatever you need to
Yeah,
do with it, and just to make it stuff like that available to the community in general. And then we can build vassal modules off those, share them privately, because I know that were available private. All those SBI things were available privately for quite a while.
right.
But now they're all out in the wild, which is awesome. So thanks to you for getting them up online and making the videos you make. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he's
I will
yeah.
also say that John Edwards is a fellow named John Edwards. I think he's
Mhm.
in Scotland, and he
Yeah.
also has a large archive of scanned stuff.
Oh,
And
sweet.
he also has, helped to grease the wheels for a lot of modules to be created in the first place. So he deserves a shout out too. And thanks, Hex
Very
to
cool.
Hex.
Yeah, that was nice of him to give you a little shout out there. So that's pretty cool. Well, I tell you what. So we're pushing up on 40 minutes, but we still got a little bit of time. So you talked about some of the things you want to do. If you were going to, what's your next game that's not an? Oh, well, that's what I had. I have a question for you first. So, are you
Oh,
interested in great campaigns of the American Civil War at all, or are you focused on the battle scale stuff?
um, I've been kind of a tire kicker for that series. I have seen a lot of videos of playthroughs and things like that. And the Civil War is odd in that the flavor of the campaigns has a unique flavor of itself when it's put on to the Civil War. So I do have
Right.
a bit of an interest in it, although it doesn't quite flip all of my uh, narrative wicks that uh, Great Battles does. On the
Right.
other hand, I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand. Um,
Sure.
but I also know that those games they're kind of expensive to acquire.
Yes,
So
they are.
I don't know if I ever will really get into it from that standpoint. But it it is interesting, to watch the campaigns and how the game goes. It has its own little quirks and things that are kind of interesting to me. So yeah, I kind of live vicariously with that. Maybe the same way that I do with the Labatai series. It's like I may never
Right.
actually get into it myself, but I'm kind of interested in seeing how the sausages are made.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know. I don't know what it is about the American Civil War, but I'm fascinated from a technological standpoint because of where it fits in time with the changes in technology with rail, telegraph, weaponry, and the sort of the movement away from linear combat to more non-linear combat, we'll call it that, and certainly sort of operational scale stuff. And that's always really fascinated me how the battles evolved because the tactics changed really slowly, sadly for most of the soldiers fighting. But operationally, like the whole operational art of warfare, there's a whole lot of stuff that went on that's really, really cool. And the Great Campaign series tends to capture some of that, but they're also can get, I don't know, super wonky, right? Because it can go off the rails really easily. And I don't know how you fix that, but so I struggle. I'm fascinated by great campaigns. I'm interested in the battles because I want to see how the battles actually turned out with all those different weapons systems and the way things work. But it hasn't grokked for me on the battle side. The campaign side, I get it, except for all the special 40 pages of advanced rules. It kind of bogs me down a bit. Yeah.
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 I like the battles just because of the narrative. It's
Hmm.
um, when people talk to me about different levels of games that you can play, I always kind of say that the reason I don't like like core level, army level, strategic level stuff is because when you're looking at that on the map and your result is like defender retreat 2 or a step loss or something like that, it's like, well, I can see how that plays out on the map, but it's just not really that interesting. Now,
Right.
conversely, you can take great campaigns or great battles in the American Civil War battle, and you have this whole detail filled description of what happens on a given turn. You can
Yeah.
say a
Yeah.
specific regiment turned up on the flank of this other regiment, and they came up a hill, and they were hidden by terrain, and the
They,
morale
they're
of the
hidden.
force attack was bad, and that explains why they routed and how that turned the battle. And you just get this story
Yep.
out
Gave
of
someone an ass
single.
whooping, right?
Yeah, it's just more interesting to me. And when you combine it with the fact that here in America I can actually go to some of these places and stand in
Hmm.
those same areas and take pictures and go like, oh, now I see why they couldn't take this hill or something like that. That
Right. Right.
that
Right.
even adds
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. That's fascinating. That's very cool. So Gary has a question for you about Civil Brigade series or the Line of Battle series. Have you tried those?
No, again, I've been a tire kicker and I've looked at it. I I have a little bit of familiarity with it. The Brigade series was kind of more analogous to the Glory series in that it was a little bit on a larger scale than regimental. So it was like half brigades or something for each counter. You still have to worry about things like lines and columns and things like that, but it's at a slightly larger scale.
Right.
It's interesting. It is interesting, although I do tend to have some issues with MMP's maps and their artwork style that they use all the time, and that has also kind of kept me at arm's length with that system.
Right. Yeah. I hear. Sometimes the although the Line of Battle maps are very attractive, certainly a lot more attractive than some of the Brigade stuff that came out. But are you saying that there are issues just beyond the artwork and just that in terms of accuracy? Is that what you mean, or are you just saying just the art?
No, no, no.
Just the
Um, the,
artwork?
the, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. I hear
the
you. Yeah.
MMP artwork
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
clunky,
yeah.
I guess.
There's a lot of that, especially some of the gamers titles, right? There's that, ooh, 1980 called and wants all its colors back thing, right? It's not a disco anymore, son. Let's work that out, right? Um, so here's our buddy Steve. This would
Hmm.
be an awesome way to play great campaigns. I hate to be the umpire on that action, though. Uh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess what you could do, I
yeah.
guess
Being
what
an
you could do.
umpire is hard work.
Yeah, maybe you could write orders or something like that. That might be fun. I don't know.
Yep.
That would probably do it if you could. Then you could do it face to face. You wouldn't have to have two rooms, but then you know where people are, so that's kind of shoots that down. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, and here we got people agreeing with us about the maps for sure. Yeah. Well, Steve, listen,
Yeah.
man, I really appreciate you getting on. And by the way, look, folks, I put this up once already. You need to give me or type in the URL. Steve, let me see. I don't have it on this laptop. I've got it on my other screen. I'll put it into the comments when I get when we finish this stream. But give me there's private chat here, so if you can just cut and paste your URL, and then if you can
Uh,
do that now, or you can't. That's cool. I can
Yeah,
do it later.
the other way to do it is to just go on YouTube, and if you do a search for Stiglr for the details, then one
Mm,
episode or the other will pop up, and
okay,
then you can subscribe from there, or like, or dislike, as the
yeah,
case may be.
I'm having real issues with my YouTube lately. My board game, big board. Here it is, big board. Let me just mute this so it doesn't start. I'm going to just go to the channel. It will not let me log into my channel. I don't know why, but
Ooh, that's bad.
yeah, it's real. I
How are
mean,
you getting your
I
stuff up there?
well, I can post it from my phone, and and I can. I've got one page saved. That's the studio page, but other than that, I'm I can't comment on your videos. I can't comment on anyone's videos. It says they've got to sign in, and I sign in, and then it just pops me straight back out again. So I don't know what I've done. I've pissed off somebody or something,
Hmm.
or I
Or
tried
maybe you've been
linking
hacked.
that too, but I tried linking it to my personal Gmail account, and I think that might have been part of the problem. And it looks like Gary's beating me to it anyway. He's put it up there, but there you go. So now we've got the
Ah,
link there.
thanks.
Yeah, the whole point of that exercise was to say, go give him a sub, give him a like, watch a couple of videos, and learn a little bit about Vassal, right? And get
Yep.
get yourself excited about American Civil War. So I hope everybody enjoyed this, and thank you for hanging out with me, Alan. It was excellent.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Almost as
Cool,
much
man,
fun as Midway, but
but not quite, right?
not quite.
No,
I
I'll work
actually
on
got
it. I'll work on
to blast that atoll into submission, so yeah, nothing will overshadow that.
No, that's perfect. Perfect. All right, man. All the best.
All right, we'll see you.